Hey there, it's Daryl. The second flight that we might be tying, unless schedules get switched up for the Monday night Charleston Healing Waters thing, is the MP-43 emerger. It's a CDC style emerger, actually tied by Marc Petitjean. And that's what the MP stands for. All his flies that he does, it's got his initials MP and it's got some number. And if there's 4 numbers, it's the hook size associated with it, from the way I understand reading the book. But the recipe that the MP-43 is in, tying flies with CDC, the Fisherman's Miracle Feather by Leon Spink. So, it's got some picture-by-picture steps and how we're going to tie it. And I'm going to tie my version. I don't have the olive color that they're calling for. I have a dark olive, and that's what I'll be tying. Alright, well, I'll show you the fly, and then we will try to tie this thing. I find it's pretty complicated with the camera system and getting there. And I'm tying it on a size 16. This is one of the emergers that Marc Petitjean has in several of his books and videos in there. It's supposed to represent some type of a mayfly dun or whatever. It's a merger. This little part, the little hump thing right here, is going to create some air bubbles when it's down there. And the weight that he's putting on isn't really weight. It's a silver metal, and it's supposed to cause it to ride hook down into the column, the hook point in the column. So why don't we go ahead and get tying, and I'll explain all the materials as I go along. I'm going to be tying it on a TMC 100 size 16. And I'll debarb the hook. And I'm going to use a A-dot black. I tried tying one on a 6-aught or 140. It seemed to be, for a size 16, that was way too much thread. So I would recommend an 8-aught thread on this fly, on this hook anyway. If you're tying it maybe bigger, you get by with it. I'm going to start like one eye width behind, and I'm going to take it back just past the barb, and then we'll tie in our the silver wire, and that's just to add weight. I'm using fine wire. You could probably get by with small. And I'm going to tie it so it stays on the bottom. And I'm going to take it, wrap it around the bend, and there you go. I broke my thread. Alright. Try this again. And we're going to take this back around the bend a little bit. And then I'm going to use a cradle to get my thread out of the way. And I'm going to try to do a good job wrapping this. I don't know if it's important, but you know, whatever catches the eye of the angler. You know, I don't know if you really need to use silver. That's called in the recipe, but you know, it might not even be a bad idea to use a brighter color for a hot spot, because we're not going to cover that up. And we're going to just position that down on the bottom. The recipe calls for brown floss or uni-stretch floss for a divider on the tail. So I'm going to use about part of a strand here. Counter spin it so it goes backwards. There you go. And we're going to try to make sure that is stayed on top of the hook, because we're going to use this thread to create some tails on there. We're going to use coq de Leon on there. I'm sure you can use other barnacles. And just tear them off. And the way I tore them off, I didn't show you how you should do that, is just grab some here at a right angle and pull the stem and that away. And you're going to want this to be roughly the hook length. I'm going to kind of cut off these curly tails. And then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to kind of take my thumb and even out and split those. Lock that in a little bit there. And I think you can see we got a little split. created the split. We're going to take some CDC, and it does say olive, but it's kind of dark according to the picture. He's using looks like a lighter olive, but this is what I have and on there. And then we're just going to go ahead and we're going to use this for the body. Give it a couple loose wraps and pull this through. And then we're going to take this to like maybe the 2/3 spot, right about there. And then I'm going to go ahead and put a half hitch to hold that spot there, so I can use my nifty bobbin keeper out of the way. And you can use hackle pliers for this. I'm using a stone flow one. And gonna give this a few wraps. And we're going to create a body here. We're going to take this body up to where I put that half hitch in. Give it a couple wraps to lock that in. Some in the front here. And being careful not to cut my thread, I'm gonna trim that off. And I'm gonna give it another half hitch. To hold that spot, so I can get my thread out of the way to help me prevent me from not cutting it, because now we're going to trim off this loose fibers here. We don't want to make sure we're not cutting our tail. And by putting that half hitch in there while I'm turning this, I'm not having to worry too much about unraveling my tying thread. And then I'm going to go ahead and take the rest of this wire and I'm going to counter wrap. And normally you're looking at between 4 to 5 turns to where you'll tie it off at, and making sure that they're evenly spaced. Give it a few turns here to lock that thread in. Get that out of my way a little bit. And then we'll helicopter this off. Alright, the next part gets a little tricky in the recipe. It's the wing case is made from fibers of the CDC. And these little fine things, these are the fibers. So what we're going to want to do is kind of like what I did when we split that. We're going to take some in our fingers here, and then I'm going to try to line them up and strip them off. And get some more on this side. I moved it there. It was getting kind of hard for me to do. So now I've got a clump like this. I'm going to trim off a little bit of that. And I'm going to tie that in right here. And then I'm going to kind of take my finger and roll it so that it maybe goes 180 degrees or halfway around the shank of the hook. And then take another CDC. We're going to create a head with this. So I just look for a smaller one that's in the bag. And then I'm going to put a half hitch here to hold my spot. And use my hackle pliers again to spin it. Oh, well, I had pulled on it too tight. So, try that again. create another placeholder here. And you might want this to be a little bit fuller. Lock that in. And we can cut that off. Alright, we're going to take this part and we're going to kind of fold it over and push it back. Try to get all those fibers and push it back to create that little air pocket area. And counter spin. And fold those fibers back that are in front of that. Because that's like part of the emerging wing. And I'm going to put a half hitch in there before I attempt whip finish. Going to use a little head cement and put on my threads. Give it a 3-turn whip finish. One more. And I got some cleanup besides the thread. I kind of got some fibers back under here. That's not a big thing. We'll just trim those off. And the tail stayed somewhat split. But that's Marc Petitjean's number 43 emerger, the MP-43. I hope you found this interesting and that you'll subscribe to my channel and tie. I know you'll be tying up a few of these on Monday night. All right. Well, I hope your struggle wasn't as bad as mine was on tying this fly, but it'll be a fish catcher, that's for sure. And follow me along. Hopefully you subscribe. And yeah, we're going to be tying up some flies. All right. See you in the water.